Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. We are Gerard and Associates. I am Kevin Kelly. The other person on the end of the mic is Paul Gerard. This is the G&A Way podcast. Paul, how are you?
I'm good, I guess. I'm a little bit wrapped up in all the media kerfuffle about the Springfield, Illinois case. I'm sure you and I have talked about this. I know you're aware of it, and it seems to be dominating the media. And I think it's something we should talk about in regards to EMS quality and how the compassion component fits into that.
Horrible story, what happened out in Illinois. 2 EMTs have been charged with first-degree murder for the death of 35-year-old Earl Moore Jr. Goes without saying, I on behalf of Paul and our team at Gerard and Associates, our deepest sympathies go out to Mr. Moore's family. This was a never event. It should have never happened. We've seen the video. There is much opportunity out there to improve both our patient care and our customer service, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually like that term. It's a federal Medicare term, right? Never event. These are events that happen in the healthcare system that should just never happen, and unintended deaths is certainly a never event. So that's the proper way to go about phrasing that, I think. It's so discouraging to see EMS providers acting in this fashion, because you and I have been in this for a really long time, Kevin. Since the 80s, and we've fought very, very hard to get EMS, along with a whole lot of other people, to get EMS recognized as a profession, as our providers to be recognized as professionals. It wasn't that long ago where the medical community didn't give us a whole lot of respect. And so this sort of stuff, in my opinion, just sets us back, decades when people see this.
So it was 45-year-old Peggy Jill Finley and 50-year-old Peter Cadigan. And to me, Paul, it's hard to believe that there weren't some type of behaviors, some type of manifestations, some type of signs and symptoms that one or both of these providers was approaching some type of extremis in their mental health, in their behavior, in how they treated their colleagues, and perhaps, we don't know, how they treated other patients out there. Somebody was asleep at the switch, Paul.
Yeah, probably. On occasion, something like this happens, and it's an isolated event, and it's not representative of the EMS agency as a whole. Unfortunately, these types of events sometimes are indicative of the problems that an agency has that are structural, that go well beyond just a couple of rogue providers doing something they shouldn't do. And we're a quality improvement firm, right? So we're all about patient care quality, and interestingly, customer service is a big part of that, right? How we treat people, not just in terms of their medical needs, but also their emotional, psychological needs, and providing the right amount of empathy for these patients. And clearly there was a failure of that in this incident.
So you're on the scene, and the call is not going very well. The patient is non-compliant. He's in some type of extremis, and Mr. Moore was apparently hallucinating, and he needed help. He needed compassion. He needed empathy. He didn't get it. What should happen? I mean, if you're a provider and you're feeling like you're about to lose it, and you're one step away, not knowing that you're on body cam footage and this is going to be a national story, what do you do? How do you step back? What's the message to our providers who are at that point in this patient care scenario?
Well, there's the immediate issue of being on that call where that comes out, and you have to step back for a moment and get your head in the right space so that you can take proper care of these people. And if you can't do it, you've got to call for backup support. You've got to call for help. That I just can't handle that. Or if your partner is having a bit of a meltdown, you need to step in and make something happen positively, so something of this nature doesn't occur. So that's the immediate thing on the call. But the reality is, I find it hard to believe, just from watching the video, of the callous disregard for this patient, the provider didn't seem at all interested. I know it's 2 in the morning. I get that. We've all had these calls, right? 2 in the morning, and you've got patients who have behavioral issues or intoxicated or on drugs, and in some cases they're out of control and difficult to handle. This guy wasn't so out of control. It didn't appear from the body cam footage that's online. It seemed like he was just kind of rolling around helplessly, and she just, the female provider just didn't have any interest in dealing with this patient at all. There was no assessment performed. There's no compassion. There's no assistance in any way, and the cops had to be the ones to kind of hustle the patient out as best they could and get him outside. So so that it shouldn't occur. But oftentimes, as I mentioned to you, these are not isolated events. That agency really has to. Every agency, not just that agency, but every agency needs to have a good idea of the temperament of the providers and what kind of stresses and strains they're going through. And at the earliest signs that providers are not able to perform their job functions with empathy and compassion, there needs to be a process to identify that provider and pull them aside before something like this happens. So I'm really curious. I'm curious whether the agency was monitoring their personnel to that level, or whether everybody in the organization just has a real bad attitude problem and nobody seemed to care about it. So it's hard to tell from the outside. We may not know that, but I'm interested during the course of the trial to hear more about what were the circumstances that led these two particular providers to show such a disregard for the patient's well-being.
Yeah, for God's sakes, if you're out there and you're EMT or a paramedic and you're at wit's end, call for help. Get your supervisor out there. No shame in that. Sometimes these calls do not go the way we expect them to go, and sometimes that interpersonal relationship between the provider and the patient doesn't go as well as it should. Call for help. And you mentioned the police, Paul. If you're a police officer and you're witnessing EMTs, paramedics, and not treating people very well, please do something. If you see something, say something. You know what customer service is all about, and have our backs. Say, hey, step outside. We'll take care of it. Get somebody else here. Get some additional resources. But this, from my perspective, watching that video now a number of times, there were multiple opportunities to dissuade and help alleviate that situation so it did not rise to the level what it did. Now, long before this guy stopped breathing, Mr. Moore, there was probable cause for assault. Long before Mr. Moore stopped breathing, there was probable cause for assault and battery, and then up the continuum of aggravated factors of crimes to the person. So there were multiple opportunities to intervene to prevent this, and nobody seemed to do anything. EMTs didn't know what to do. The police stood around. They didn't know what to do, and as a result, Mr. Moore stopped breathing. Should not have happened.
Yeah, I find it interesting, as you mentioned in that statement, that if you're police, if you see providers doing a terrible job in terms of not treating patients properly, not clinically, but from an emotional support standard, or even an abusive standard, you use the term "see something, say something." And interestingly, we've had police departments all over the country telling us to do that from over the last few years, to report to them if we see stuff out there that's suspicious in regard to things such as terrorism and crime and that sort of thing. And interestingly, we're using that term back to the police officers, saying, hey, if you notice EMS providers doing something similar, you need to speak up and say something. So I'm curious whether those officers, after the call was over, went back and filed some sort of complaint against the crew members with the ambulance service or something, or if they just said, we see that all the time from these guys, it's nothing new, and just go about our business. But they really should have spoken up at some point, even if it's after the call, to management for the ambulance service, so the management has a chance to correct that and to make sure that it's not going on a larger scale.
Yeah, so the message to EMS leaders is get a handle on your internal customers' mental health issues. If you don't, and you're not looking, and you're not seeing, and you're not doing, you're definitely not acting. If you don't, the criminal justice system's going to do it for you. And then after the criminal justice system has at it, the civil justice system's going to have at it. And you're going to be on the other end of a potentially civil rights lawsuit. You're going to have the famed civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump doing interrogatories and massive discovery. And unfortunately, that ambulance service, that is going to go through an intense colonoscopy, as I would suspect the city of Springfield, Illinois as well. Get a handle on your internal customers' behaviors and their mental health. Have some type of avenue for them to vent, whether it's an employee assistance program or get some type of mental health treatment. Here in Massachusetts, we have, as you know, the On-Site Academy, which is an organization that can help first responders with any type of mental health situation that they're, or post-traumatic stress that they are undergoing. There are resources out there. We've got to use those resources. We got to keep our eye on our providers. They are out there doing the work. They're out there doing the customer service. Got to monitor. Got to teach. Got to coach up. We got to prevent this from happening again, Paul.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed over the years is that incidents like this, where providers have a really, really bad attitude or disposition, almost always correlates to bad patient care, that agencies having issues with bad patient care. You can't expect that those providers at the end of this call went and wrote a really good run report, and that in the back of that ambulance they probably did all the patient care activities for the patient they should have done. It probably didn't happen. I'd love to see the run report and put it through an audit just to see what's going on. And it's not just that call. I would be willing to also bet a week's salary that if you pulled, the last year's worth of calls from these two providers, that you'd see the same type of thing. You've probably seen very poorly documented run reports showing lack of care being provided to the patients at the standard that is expected of them based on their training and their protocol. So there were harbingers of potential for problems that should have been identified by that agency and by their QA department that may have potentially prevented something like this from happening. If you're getting bad run reports from those providers showing that historically they don't provide very good care, the QA system should be on top of that, right? They should be forcing these providers to do the right thing from a patient care standpoint. You can't necessarily change their attitude per se, and you can't ensure that they're going to be empathic to the patients on scene because you're not there. But when you see this level of lack of interest in doing the job, chances are very good that there's a trend here that's been going on for quite some time that nobody picked up on.
Burnout or rust out, it doesn't matter. There needs to be something in play to diagnose and prescribe solutions to help these folks. Post-COVID, a lot of folks are on edge. We've seen a number of, or heard of a number of incidents, whether it was a threat to drive an ambulance in a harbor, fire lieutenant was spat at and ended up slugging a guy on a stretcher, and now this. Our mental health is in jeopardy. Got to get a handle on it. And I'll add this too: if your compliance program, and you got to have a compliance program, if it's not up to date on DEI, and what is DEI? It stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. You better start building one now. Get in touch with somebody. We'd be happy to help with that as well. But you can no longer not engineer quality patient care throughout your organization. That is no longer an option. There are many manifestations of behaviors by EMS professionals that we haven't seen in the past that seem to be an upwelling. Got to get a handle on it.
We're seeing, Kevin, we're seeing this right now on a day-to-day basis in lots of organizations that we work with. What's happening is there's a shortage of providers right now. Nationwide, there's a shortage of EMTs and paramedics. It's been on the nightly news. That's not a secret. And post-COVID, people are burnt out. They're getting out of the profession. For those who are staying, they're kind of fried from having 2 or 3 years of all this COVID stuff going on. And the folks that are left to pick up the pieces are working double and triple time. Providers are just exhausted. People that we talk to, it's really hard to do good quality improvement and sit down and talk to a provider about calls that they did when they're mentally fried. Some of them are acting out, and even with the QA folks, and then they come back later and say, "I'm really sorry, I'm just really stressed. I've done a ton more calls than I normally do because we can't get providers to work the trucks." So there are strains at every level of EMS organizations, quite commonly across lots of EMS agencies. And I would imagine it's going on around the country. It's not just local to the agencies we're dealing with. So management's got a tough task ahead. They have got to figure out ways that they can provide relief to their providers in terms of the long hours that people are doing, the lack of staffing, and the mental and emotional state that their providers are in right now. They've got to provide the services. They just have to, because if not, we're going to see a lot more of this sort of thing, and it's going to become a common occurrence.
Yeah, we've been in this profession now for at least 3 decades, and I don't. There were some isolated incidents back in the day, but I just have not seen the totality and the number of quality-related incidents, and especially ones that are making the news. When we came up the ranks, we didn't have we had bag phones. We didn't have cell phones with cameras. They didn't have body cam footage. Everybody's out there with a cell phone now. Everybody is taking videos of police, fire, EMS, doing good things, doing not so good things. All of those pictures and videos easily uploaded to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and it's game over. I mean, we've always operated as though we were in a fishbowl and behaved in a way that we knew that people will watch and there were bystanders and that we may make the news. But nowhere to the instantaneous level that exists now. It is instantaneous. You screw up out there, you're on the news or you're on a Facebook page. And frankly, that's disturbing.
Yeah, agencies are just going to have to start spending more money on employee mental health issues, on compliance programs to make sure people are doing the right thing. It's just where EMS is going, in my opinion. And we've already seen a lot of that over the last few years. And even if it's residual, like the body cams being worn by police officers that are capturing EMS activities, that's going to become more and more normal. So you have to act like you're being recorded, because you probably are, and you've got to not think that what goes on in the back of the truck stays in the back of the truck. Those days are gone. So if you're management, you got to get on top of this. You got to be aggressive. Get those compliance programs, get those safety programs going, and call the agencies that can help you get this stuff together, so that you're not the next agency on the nightly news.
So, Paul, if people want to learn more about Gerard and Associates and how Gerard and Associates can help them with their various quality improvement products, how can they learn more information about us?
They can go to our website, www.gerardassoc.com, or they can email either of us, paul.gerard@gerardassoc.com or kevin.kelly@gerardassoc.com, and we'd be happy to supply the information that people are interested in hearing about.
Okay, folks, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate your time. Hope you learned something today. Have a great day. On behalf of Paul, take care.